Welcome everyone to the PSG keynote. Very happy to have all of you here. You probably, I don't know if you have heard about PSG, the name per se, which stands for Professional Services Group. But we'll start this presentation by telling you what we have contributed to. And probably, I'm pretty sure that this will ring some bells. So let's start there. Let's start with what we have done. And then let me explain to you what we are here to do, and how can we help. Okay, so let's get this started. The first engagement, actually, a good 2 years ago, if I recall correctly, is New Balance, right? New Balance was the very first PSG engagement, and for them, you probably have heard about this. We protected a limited edition Omnis shoes for New Balance in the launch that they had with Kawhi Leonard, and we utilized the Cardano blockchain for that. This small engagement gave birth to what we know today is PSG, and what we stand for at the end of the day is, we increase or created this stream of enterprise and government adoption of blockchain, and we basically help these entities to utilize Cardano and utilize blockchain in general. After New Balance, you also probably have heard about BIFchain. We help BIFchain utilize Cardano as well. With BIFchain, later on came WMC, which we are starting to help on how to build a decentralized incentive mechanism to fulfill their vision, and the Ethiopian Minister of Education. And with all these, which is, probably have heard of all of them, there are many others that will be announced in this specific summit that we are also helping or contributing to. So at the end of the day, professional services is, stands for, or we provide a limited set of services to help governments and enterprises adopt or understand. Then first understand the technology, then understand the technology, how the technology can help them, and then help them craft a path that goes from the vision that they have towards an implementation plan, right? To give you an example, actually going back to the very first example, New Balance. When New Balance came to us, they had a counterfeit problem, and they said, we think that blockchain can help us here. Can you help us understand if that can be done? And we engaged with them, and the result of it you already know. With the Ethiopian Minister of Education happened in a similar manner. They wanted to resolve a problem with digital identities. We engaged with them, we helped them, and now we have a project that is under execution. Okay? So at the end of the day, professional services, we help companies and governments adopt blockchain by bridging the gap between business and blockchain. Business is all about how do we solve specific problems for the target audience that we have. Governments are about how do we solve the problems for the citizens that we have. And all the problems fall into different categories depending on where you're playing, depending on what country you are. What we do at the end of the day is we try to bridge that gap between the problem that you are seeing firsthand and the solutions that are currently on the market, or the tooling that is currently on the market. We make that bridge and we help you cross it. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about engagement experiences. How exactly it went. I already, gave you a little bit of an idea of how exactly it happened. But for instance, let's utilize the BIFchain scenario, which I haven't. So BIFchain was a company that was already utilizing blockchain, but they were having problems with the blockchain that they were utilizing. So it was a enterprise that already knew blockchain, They just needed help with solving specific problems. So they contacted us, they presented us their problem statement, they presented us what they had done. We went into a workshop with them, we identified where they were and where they wanted to go, and we bridged that gap and executed a very simple project for them. In the case of the Minister of Education, it was somewhat similar. They had a specific problem about digital identities. They had specific programs that were surrounding that, and we went in and proposed a better way of managing digital identities that at the end of the day we are implementing there. In the case of New Balance, they came with a very specific business problem. I'm having a problem with anti-counterfeit, and I've heard that blockchain can help us here. Can you tell us if that can be done? And then we identify the problem. We ask the specific questions about, what exact problem do you have? Why are you being hurt so much because of counterfeit? What are the numbers? Where are you having those problems? Is it on all product lines or not? And so on and so forth. And after that, we ended up realizing or defining a way to go that was agreed by the two parties. So all of these engagements are very different. BIFchain is about supply chain. New Balance is about anti-counterfeit. WMC is about telco, and then Minister of Education is about digital identities. But the process was overall the same, because the state right now of adoption is roughly the same. I mean, as the industry matures, as the blockchain industry is more widely adopted, let's say, then you will have specialized tools and new markets will arise. But at this stage, the type of engagement is roughly the same. The steps that you have to go towards problem identification, solution options, solution decision, solutions architecture, product discovery, all those are roughly follow the same steps. So we utilize a common process and then we apply it to different industries. Okay, so a little bit more about the process. The first thing that happens is that there is a reach out. We get, there is an email an email address in specific that you can utilize for contacting us. I actually have the email at the end of this slide, so you'll have time to type it down. But the first step is the reach out. So a company or government tells us, we are having this problem. We believe we can help you. You can help us. Sorry. Can you help us? Can we meet? And so on and so forth. So there's the reach out, then we meet, we do a couple of sessions, we try to identify what the problem is that that client is having, and depending on the complexity of the problem, which means depending on if the problem has been solved in the past or not, depending on its complexity as well, then we engage into a longer or shorter workshop, where we try to detail in a specific the problem domain, in a specific the target audience, in a specific all the different domains, all the different areas that will make a specific solution appeal, or that will qualify a specific solution for the problem. Then after we do the workshop, there is a design and proposal, which we go over the different possibilities, and we propose what can be done depending on the trade-offs that are in front of us. There is a decision that is made, and then the next phase is to go and build it, to build a minimum viable product, a minimum solution that tests the major hypothesis, We deploy them, and then we measure how successful those hypotheses and that solution were. Okay. Now let's go. Now that we understand exactly, well, not exactly like where do we come from? What do we do? It's very important that we start. Let me give you another dimension to this equation, which is the services that we provide and the departments that actually are serving the clients that we have, right? So the first one is the Department of Consulting, which provides a different variety set of services. So I already called out, already mentioned the workshops, but there is also the ability to provide digital transformation advisory, specifically in blockchain, of course. When there is a agenda that in the technology vision of the company or the government that can be enhanced by utilizing these technologies, then we can help shape that agenda towards a decentralized industry, or by utilizing these technologies. There's also the third service, which is solution discovery. The enterprises and governments brings us specific problems that potentially can be solved with these technologies. We analyze if that is, if they really can be solved by those technologies. And after we have done that, then we just go through the solution discovery process. The second department is solutions architecture. Solutions architecture provides technology implementation advisory, solution development, and blockchain architecture services. So clients typically utilize these services when they know what they want to build, right? Consulting is more when you want to explore or when you want to understand how these technologies can be utilized in your context. Solutions architecture is when you have defined how they could be utilized in this context, and now you need help with how exactly do we execute that implementation. The next department is deliveries. Well, deliveries is the department that comprises project and program management and co-pilot programs. So we have found, in the past, some clients that can have the ability to run programs. Some clients, they would like help running programs and running projects. So we have projects and program managers within PSG that will, of course, make sure that when we do implementation projects, that when we do implementation programs, that we deliver, but we also have engaged or could engage in co-piloting projects and programs with the clients, depending on what's the purpose of the project and what's the problem to be solved, and how much or how many independent parties are there required for the program to be successful. Okay. Last but not least is the data analytics arm. Data analytics is about metrics gathering and validation of hypotheses. So if we go back to the other portfolio of services, there is a solutions architecture service in there that, or even the consulting. Going back to the consulting piece, the consulting piece, when you engage in consulting, when you engage in solution proposal, when you engage in solution discovery, there always would be a series of hypotheses that you will have to do to define a proposal, to define a solution. But it is until you actually do the first iteration of that solution that you will have, in many cases, if not all, the possibility of testing those hypotheses. So data analytics, we consider a fundamental part of the equation by allowing us and our clients to identify if what we propose and the solution that got co-developed was successful. And it also gives us a objective way of iterating the solutions that we build together. Okay, so in short, it is comprised of these four departments: consulting for the if there is a problem proposition, but it is not understood how blockchain can help and what type of solution will appeal the most. Solutions architecture, when the problem and the solution are understood, but there needs to be some help in technology implementation advisory. Delivery is when you actually want to execute an implementation delivery or an integration, and data analytics to make sure that the hypotheses that were laid out in these specific in this set of processes, if they are being if they were correct or not. Okay, so how exactly do we engage? If what I've said so far, it's interesting for you, there is a specific email, as I said earlier in the meeting, that is enterprise.services@iohk.io, and once you send an email to that address, then a business developer will be assigned to you. We will try to understand what the problem is. We will try to understand if blockchain can help you or not. And if we go through that feasibility assessment and it is successful, then we can start engaging in solutions architecture, implementation help, project or program execution, and then data analytics. Okay? All right, so that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed it, and this is a little bit of what PSG is. Thank you very much.